everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Dance Talk Realness, a podcast where we discuss all nuances concerning education and dance, because the dance experience is an experience worth talking about. Today, I am joined by my regular guest, co-host Darryl. Pilate. Hey, boo, how you doing?
Hey, this is what, number 3 or number 4?
Child, I think it's number 4.
Yeah, come on, number 4.
I was like, yes, regular guest. You about to just smooth be the co-host. That's what's about to happen. All right, before we jump into today's topics, our quote of today is from Condoleezza Rice, and she says, "The sooner you learn that life is not fair, the better off you'll be, because you'll spend less time railing against life's unfairness and feeling aggrieved and entitled, and more time figuring out how to maximize your assets and your talents and how to deal with things that you're not very good at." So, yes, it's like, so life be terrible. Accept it, because you can move on faster, which I think is the perfect quote for the lifestyle that we are currently living. Because it's not fair.
It is not
There's
fair.
a whole lot happening that is just really crazy.
Yeah.
But it is very much the sooner, and I think as a whole, the sooner that we collectively acknowledge that, okay, yeah, no, it sucks. It's not easy for anyone. It's not easy being stuck in the house. It's not easy dealing with family and friends being sick. It's not easy dealing with family and friends passing. None of this is fair. Right. But once we can accept that, then we can start kind of moving forward and figuring out how exactly we should be moving. So
right. Yeah, no, I definitely just had a conversation with a friend of mine about, now that I don't know if we can say that I don't know if we're nearing the end. Are we at the beginning of the beginning? You know what I mean? Like the beginning of the worst, the beginning of the end, beginning of whatever it is. I think as we slowly try to find that new normal, is like everybody's new normal will look different. It's like one of those like self-discovery things where like once you yourself can like you said, realize that this is terrible, like this is gonna suck for a little bit, you can then kind of move on to one, like figuring out how you move on, and then what ways you move on that makes you feel most safe and most comfortable. Because I mean, you can't stop living. Like that's something that I think, if anything, if this has taught me, especially if this is going to happen again later on in the fall, you just got to keep doing what you're doing.
And I think that's the adjustment part that a lot of people are struggling with. And I'm like, yeah, things may be different, but we still have to keep living. Like if you are one of the fortunate that have been able to continue through this, then you have to keep pushing forward. Like it's almost like your moral obligation to do so.
Right. Yeah.
But how we push forward is what needs to be reevaluated, because obviously us just jumping straight back into how things used to be is not the business. Because folks really keep trying it, and I'm like, it keeps going wrong, and I'm like, y'all just gonna keep doing that? Like,
no, exactly.
Like that picture of Ocean City the other weekend, I was like, well, first the fuck of all, what are y'all doing? Like, not all the bodies. Like, are y'all really out here this close? Like, y'all serious?
Yeah. And
then we get another spike, and then people are somehow magically surprised by that. I'm like, guys, like things have to shift. Right. Like, yes, live. Yes, like, dude, I love the idea of going out somewhere, but I also don't want to get sick. I don't want to be the cause of someone else getting sick. So how I go out and how I move when I'm out has to change. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. And I think that there are ways to do that safely. But it definitely is not going to look like it looked before. And I think everybody needs to kind of come to grips with that.
That's child.
Yeah.
Because it is worrisome at this point.
It is.
Like, I feel
It
like things
really
could have
is.
gone so much better if everyone would have just kind of like took a pause for the cause and just kind
Mm-hmm.
of waited to see if this thing could just kind of die out a little bit.
Right.
At least minimize the destruction that has occurred.
Right.
But America,
America.
they're gonna do what they want,
Yeah.
apparently.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Trash. But on a related but happier note,
Yes.
have
Yes.
you been taking any of the online dance classes lately?
I haven't.
You sound like me. He's like, ooh,
Oh,
no.
but only because like I've been doing like a Tuesday like Zumba class um, for my colleagues on Zoom, so we call it Zumba.
That's
Um,
cute.
um, and so that's kind of been where I'm at, and then I've been just doing just like my own choreography for my students. So I just haven't found the energy to like, okay, now I'm going to jump into this online class. I did at the very beginning of this, I took an online yoga class, and that was really different. It was really nice. It was probably like within the first like 2 weeks of quarantine. So that was fun.
So tell me more about this choreography that you've been working on for your students. Cause yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I have been, so a couple weeks, I mean, like everybody, all of our spring concerts got canceled. But me being stubborn and headstrong, I was like, no, like we are going to do this spring concert. So I have decided to compile like a bunch of videos of my students dancing in their homes. Um, so I'm going to put together just like a little virtual concert that we will, hopefully I'll have it finished by Wednesday. That's the goal. That's the date I told them. So hopefully I can get all this edited and done. I kind of have like where I want everything to go, but the choreography has been just like some jazzy, fun stuff, some kind of moderny, like fusion kind of stuff. I mean, it's just something to keep them moving. I didn't want to do anything too. Um, I wanted it to be fun and vibrant and energizing for them.
Yeah.
With some current music that's kind of out. So yeah, and then they recorded themselves doing some of the choreography we were doing before we left.
Okay.
So that's been good.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Part of me is trying to, because I actually just filled out a survey dealing with the dance studio, like they took a poll of like how the parents feel about either doing a virtual concert or pushing everything back until December and seeing if we're good to all be in the same place then. I was like,
Mm,
man, go ahead and do that virtual concert. My kids will be there.
mm,
Like
yeah,
they'll show up.
right,
Um, just because the kids have worked so hard.
right.
And it's like, it's not the same. And I know it's not the same, but just for them to have some way of getting this movement out. And
Hmm.
I'm just really stuck on the idea of in the fall, regardless of the format that everything takes, it should be a new start. Um,
Agreed.
like,
Yeah.
let's say if we're still on the struggle bus and we're still working virtually,
Hmm.
I think for me, I would rather start something new instead of pulling everything from when this all jumped off, pulling
Hmm.
that into this new school year. Like
Hmm.
let's just start over
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
like make this new thing work however it needs to work. But
Right.
I know again they're polling all the parents and they'll go with majority rules.
Right.
But I'm hoping that the virtual like how they described they would do it. I'm like, I think we could make this happen. Like they would do small groups.
I mean, granted, I wasn't supposed to do anything new. Like that was kind of like we were told so many different things, but like one of the things that they wanted was like, don't do anything new, like just kind of do some reinforcement work. But I'm like, a lot of them wanted something new. Like when I did like a little reflection about like what their thoughts were about virtual learning, like after the first 2 weeks were over, a lot of them were like, oh, I thought we would learn dances. I thought we would continue kind of working on some of the stuff we were working on. And so I was like, okay, well, if that's what some of them want, I'm all for it. Like, let's do it. Let's keep working on some of the things we were doing. And plus, especially for next year, because, luckily I have about 60 of my Dance 1 students returning for Dance 2. And I have about 25 that will be in a combined class of Dance 3 and 4. And then I had 134 kids sign up for Dance 1.
Ooh, child.
Yeah, I know. So obviously that number is going to get cut down quite a bit. But for those upper level, the Dance 2 and above, like, they don't want to keep doing the same stuff they did back in March 2020. If anything, they want to keep going. And there's some projects and stuff that we were working on that we probably will continue to work and do. Like there's some performance groups that I'm with that people are really trying to find ways to perform that work, just because they've worked on it really hard. And so and it's important. Some of it's a really important work that people want to have want to showcase and people to see it. So I definitely get that. But for my high school kids, like I just kind of want to, that's why I really want to put out this virtual concert, and in the fall start something totally different.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
So let's jump into our first topic.
Yeah.
All right. So, being a male in the dance world, I have questions for you because that is not my testimony. So, looking at the dance world in general at this point, so whichever angle you want to approach it from, but how would you define the politics of being a male in the dance world in any format?
Yeah, well, I think in a past episode I might have told the story of like being in college and being with a really good friend of mine, Matt, and a professor of ours telling us that we would have a really hard time finding high school teaching jobs because we were men, and that parents may not feel comfortable, especially in the nature that we teach, that we are after school. If you direct a company or a team that's football, you're with them on the weekends half the time. I traveled with mine, last year, that it would be really difficult as a male. And so, of course that was disheartening to hear. And it starts to make you kind of second guess like what it is that you want to do with like this dance degree, right? Like if you're not, in my mind, I thought if I'm not going to dance and perform, then I'm going to go and teach. And I think, for my friend Matt, I feel like maybe, I wouldn't say it deterred him from teaching high school, but I think maybe it might have shifted his focus. Because then after we graduated from our undergrad, he went on and did more of a master's in fine arts in dance and choreography. And I actually was like, no, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna teach high school. I'm gonna teach high school dance. And so, and I think for male teachers, maybe, either being a guest artist, going off and performing, maybe even going into higher ed, I think it's probably a lot easier to kind of navigate those politics, because it is a space where I think colleges and programs are looking to diversify their programs by having men in them. Whereas when you look at like secondary education, I still think there's like that, there's still that worry or that stigma around having men in dance rooms. You know, it's always you know, make sure they're not in this, make sure you're not in the same room as them as when they're changing. And I mean, which you, male or female, you never want to have
Yeah.
that situation happen to you. But it always seems like it's very directed to the men, like make sure you don't do that. Don't be in a locked room with someone. Don't be in a closed door room by yourself with somebody, with another student. When I say somebody, I mean another student. Don't be in a closed door meeting with only you and one other student. Once again, that's with male or female, and that is also with a male or female student. So I think I navigated that by just really trying to be really open with like my students and with the parents and like like the community in which I teach in. I think every school is it's interesting because I think back to that conversation with that professor, and then I think about the experiences that I've had, the last 12 years, and I just feel like I've never had a parent concern. I've never had a like a teacher concern. I don't think students ever been concerned about it, and I think it might go back to what I think where you're going to go towards next. Is it might be the sexuality thing. Maybe that is something that kind of deters like that questioning, like, oh well, I'm surprised gay, like that's not gonna really, we're not worried about that, that's fine. So maybe that's kind of been more or less like a saving grace, or like something that's helpful. Whereas if I was a straight male teacher, what that would look like, I don't know.
Okay, so have you known any male teachers that have had to deal with that type of situation?
No, not that I can think of. The one thing I will say that's been like really another interesting thing is that I feel like also as a male teacher, there's a level of like people expect you to be like an awesome dancer / awesome teacher. Like, and I think that's the expectation from like the students, the parents, your administration. Because I feel like, and I'm sure we both have seen, there are people who can stay in dance positions for a very long time, which we both know good and well. These people are not up moving, are not up choreographing anything, and they are women teachers, and I feel like as a male teacher, I don't think that could fly. I don't think that would. I don't think people would keep me in a position that long if I was not being as active as I am in my classroom. So do I know any male teachers that have been through that? No, I think a lot of them are just like exceptionally great dancers. And so like people are just floored and wowed by them. I do know a gentleman who was in my program, but several years younger than me. He actually I think he was a bit of a bigger guy, and I think that was something that even someone said that he may struggle with, like struggle to get a job if you didn't give the appearance of being in shape and being able to do, what I mean? I guess it goes back to that, like secondary teachers are supposed to be these really active, like you should be able to know how to do X, Y, Z. And people just expect for you, because it's like, I guess it's like, if you don't look like the type of person that can do those things, well, what are you doing in the classroom? Like maybe there's some ulterior motive that you have for wanting to teach dance if you don't have the appearance of being this like phenomenal dancer, good technician, choreographer person.
Like I will say it is interesting to hear that, because it's never even crossed my mind that that is a thing that will also be said to my male counterparts. Like I remember hearing that a lot being said to the women in my program, but it was never as explicitly stated to the men. It was always like there was this expectation that we will all be stick thin, makeup. The one teacher wanted us to always wear earrings, and I was like, who dancing with these earrings on? Like, where are we? Like, what are we doing? I'm not allowed to wear these in class. Why are you telling me to teach like that? Like, that doesn't make sense, but okay. But it was this idea of, I guess you can say, beauty that was being put out that, well, if you don't fit within these parameters, then you're going to have difficulty landing a position. The other thing, like, I will never forget, this woman said to us that we should not get married, have kids, or get tattoos. Those three things. And this is undergrad. And I kindly raised my hand and I was like, so I've done all three of those things. I am already here. Do I need to change my major? Like, is that what you're telling me right now? And so, like, for all the student teaching things, like, I always had to wear like long sleeves or just make sure all of my tattoos were covered. And then I'm out here to get a job. Don't nobody care. Nobody cared that I had all the tattoos. My hair is always some other type of different color. I'm all the married. I'm all the mother because I got all the kids in the world up in here. It's only 3, but it'd be a lot of them. 3 is a lot of bodies to be keeping track of. But I was like, there was that standard that I'm like, I don't know that you should perpetuate this, but it was really heavily directed towards the women. So I do find it interesting that y'all be catching it too.
We definitely caught it too. And I think especially like in Texas, like where like I would say 98% of dance teachers in Texas are female. I think of that 98, it's me trying to figure out how to do math.
Yes,
but
math.
I would say, yes, math. I would say of that, at least 75 to 85% of that is Caucasian women. And they're all like, it was such a clique. It was such a group of like, I mean, I think that was like the most difficult thing about getting jobs in Texas was that I felt like, it was almost like you had to know somebody. You had to know. I mean, I guess I feel like that's how I got this job now. It's because I knew somebody who put me in touch with the right person. You know what I mean? And I think maybe for males, that's a little bit, I wouldn't say it's a little bit harder, but I felt like, and this is me still thinking about my Texas living, like where like there's some dance teachers in Texas, that high school dance teachers, who would, if they had like a dance program, which in Texas the dance programs are very much so like, I feel like they're very centered around their dance teams. And so, and then they have like, they have, of course, dance 1, dance 2, dance 3, dance 4. And they'll probably take males in those classes, but like where you really wanted to be on was like the dance team, because that's where you got a lot of performance opportunities. That's really where like if you had two dance teachers, you really had the one main dance teacher focused on the dance team, and the assistant kind of focused more on the dance classes, or the other assistant. Some places have three, where there's, well, I guess we have that here too. But they have three teachers, and like one is focused mostly on the dance team, and then the other two are focused more on the dance classes. That was where that focus is, and half of them wouldn't want males on those teams. So like so where you got your most technique, your most possible opportunities to perform, there were several teachers who were anti-males on their team. And so I feel like sometimes those connections, just are very difficult to make. Like my first job kind of got like on a whim, I think, at a charter school, like just part-time teaching dance. And then after that, like another job I got after that one was, of course, on my own merit, but it was helpful that I knew the teacher that was there prior to. And then from there, like I kind of just got a job, just being in the right place, right time, like rubbing elbows with like the right people at the right time. So, yeah. So answer your question again. Like, do I know people that navigated through that? No. Yeah.
I just want to circle back.
Mm-hmm.
So I am accustomed when I taught in North Carolina and teaching here in Maryland,
Mm-hmm.
to be very pro male. Like, you want to find the boys who want to take your class,
Mm-hmm.
or that want to be on the dance team or in the dance company. Like, you want to find them, and you want to cultivate a culture where you can get more and more interest built and recruit more and more young men. It boggles my mind to hear that anyone would not be about that business. It does not compute. Like,
right. I think it's just I don't know. I don't know why you would not want that to be an opportunity. And maybe things have changed. I mean, obviously, I've not been in Texas in 3 years. But I do know, I do feel like as I was leaving, there just still seemed to always be this, like, people throw boys into like, oh, we're going to have this hip hop crew. And it's like, well, maybe that's not what they want to do. Like, don't just automatically just like pigeonhole, like, that's what I'm going to do with the boys, because like, I feel like I don't really, and it's like maybe fear of like, and I know that I have had some boys that might be, maybe they are, not, I wouldn't say struggling, but maybe they are coming to the realization that maybe they might be transsexual. And so, for these dance teams, they're in skirts, they're carrying poms. And so some of the boys might be like, what, maybe they're not trans, maybe they're just want to live their best life, and they want to carry poms. And it's like, okay, let them, you know what I mean? And I guess teachers are so fearful of the backlash, either from parents or the community, that a lot of people kind of shy away from that. And what's interesting is that I worked with the woman before coming here that just, I don't know what it was, but she just kind of threw all that stuff, that worry, out the window. And she just was like, I just want people to live their truth. And if your truth is wearing a skirt and carrying some palms, then we're gonna make that happen. And that's gonna be your life. And let somebody say something.
it's like, come out your mouth if you want.
If you want to, yeah. And I think that there needs to be more people who teach that way in that state, for sure. But No, I'm just always like, even as I teach now in PG, like the number of guys that I have come through my dance program, and I've just been shocked since day one. Like from, um, I've had several students. I mean, sadly, some of them I got my first year when they were seniors, and I'm just like, why are you leaving? You're such a good
Yeah.
dancer, and like I'm like, who knows what this guy's doing now? But just so on and so forth. Like I've just been lucky to have. I had one, like I said, graduated my first year, one graduated last year. Luckily, none of them graduate this year, but I have one graduating next year and the year after that. So I just continue to have some really good, just males that are interested in dance, interested in having that outlet. So, um, yeah, it is. It is crazy to think that there are some people who were not about that
Yeah.
life. Yeah.
Which does bring us back to that idea of the impact that sexuality has on men in the dance world.
Mm-hmm.
Even something as quote unquote simple as costuming.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know I did the one piece. I still need to get my kids on here because I miss my babies, but also it'll be fun.
Yeah.
That the girls had like, crop top and shorts with a little bustle on the back, a little
Mm-hmm.
flowy material, some tulle attached to it. And the guys had on these like ankle length tulle skirts.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when the idea was first put out there that it was like a record scratch. Everyone was like, Miss Bennett, what? I was like, trust me though. Trust
Yeah.
me. I was like, it makes sense with what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And so I became very much a fan of you're gonna wear what I tell you to wear, or you're not gonna be in the piece.
Yeah.
And if that means you're going to wear pants, then you're wearing pants. If it means that you're going to wear these dance shorts, you're wearing these dance shorts. If you're going to wear this tulle skirt, you're wearing this tulle skirt. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're wearing what I'm telling you to wear because there's a reason I'm telling you to wear it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always of the opinion that I'm like, I don't really care what your orientation is.
Mm-hmm.
That's your business.
Right.
But can you do the choreography though? Can you be on the correct count? Can
Right.
you move with the music? That's
Right.
all I really need you to do. And so I think that it is not the correct way to go about it to always, there's probably a better way to say this here sentence, but to always drag sexuality into it for the guys. Like, I don't feel like that really ever happens to the women. Not that I've ever
Yeah.
seen. If it does, then, I'm sorry. I'm speaking from a place of my experience. I've never seen
Mm-hmm.
it though. It's always
Yeah.
towards the guys, and it's always, well, you have to fit this image. You have to be hyper masculine, but you also have to have like some gentleness to you because you have to be
Mm-hmm.
able to portray these different qualities of movement. And I'm like,
Right.
okay, but if you can do what needs to be done on stage, then what does any of the rest of it have to do with anything unless that is a part of the piece?
Right.
Like it shouldn't, maybe a better way to say it is that it shouldn't be held against you.
Right.
And I feel that it is oftentimes held against or guys are shamed. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, but for why though? Like,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't know. I mean, I guess guys are afraid of that, of like feeling like their masculinity is being challenged or
mm-hmm.
something might threaten that. Um, I will say I have had some female students who, if there's something that I might choreograph that, I'll call sassy, or you have to be
Mm-hmm.
a little girly. They're like, some of them are like, I'm not a girly girl.
Yeah. I had that happen. You're right. That is a thing that
Yeah.
happens. It was like, I want you to do this. And they're
Yeah.
like, I'm not.
I don't do that.
That's all I got for you. It's like, okay, baby, we'll work it out.
Yeah. um, and I do know that it feels like, I think maybe just because I've had a lot of female teachers, that maybe a lot of my own choreography and my own way of moving
Mm-hmm.
sometimes is not as like maybe percussive and strong like a male dancer. Um, but I also kind of feel like that sets me apart a little bit. That
Yeah.
I don't have that. There's some. I think if you don't have a little bit of um, that lightness in your dancing, I feel like sometimes you just look really clunky, and then some male
Yeah.
dancers just look very heavy when they dance. Some female dancers probably look really heavy when they dance,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like maybe that's the aesthetic of the choreography, and that's fine. But I think it just goes back to, well, why does it have to be about men dance this way, women dance this way, men wear this, women wear that?
Yeah.
That it can be whatever is for the sake of the artistic expression of the piece
Mm-hmm.
or of the choreography. So um, I do, um, yeah, I do agree that it yeah, I disagree with you. I think it matters on what the piece is trying to say, and if you don't want to wear or do this, then maybe you don't need to be in the piece.
It's
So
like there might be another piece for you later.
yeah, yeah. And I always try to give, like, so my dance one, like I do this cha-cha dance that a friend of mine choreographed, and there's a part where like the girls, and I say the girls, option one, and sometimes I try to pick my language because I'm just like,
Yeah.
I don't want to say the girls do this, because if a man want to do that, I'd be like, man, why are you doing the girl part? I'm just like, option one is to do this. Option two is to have the hands behind your back. I don't care what option you pick one.
Yeah.
So and I feel like that um, has worked for me for that. Just so if I don't ever want to deny anybody how they feel and how they perceive themselves, and if that's the movement that you want to do, go for it. Yeah.
Which I think
Um,
is fair.
yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah.
So, what we have not touched on is
Mm-hmm.
how does race have an impact, particularly because you are a Black male.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how does, or have you noticed, let me say it that way, from your
Mm-hmm.
experience, have you noticed any um, impacts that your Blackness has had on the politics of your maleness within the dance world that maybe counterparts who are not of the Black persuasion?
Yeah. Um, I don't know. That's a very good question that I would love to ask my neighbor, who's also a dancer,
Mhm.
who is mad that I was talking about earlier. That what maybe as a male teacher, a male artist, because he is white, what are some of the expectations or limitations that
Mhm.
he kind of gets, and vice versa? Um, Automatically my expectation is that I'm really good at hip hop, or that I'm a good jazz dancer, and that
Mhm.
that's what I'm gonna do. Um, I think that, or that I do African, um, and that I love African, but I definitely would not. I would do it a disservice if I were to ever. If you ever see me sign up, Darryl Pilate is teaching an African class. Do take something else.
Like, don't take that class. Don't sign up for
Don't take that
that.
class. Don't take that class. Do not take it. Don't do it. Encourage your friends not to take it, because it will not be a good experience for anybody. I mean, you don't teach African from a notebook. let me go to
Mhm.
my notebook and look at what we're going to do next in the class. It's about, and I love taking it, but I'm definitely don't
Yeah.
need to teach it. But um, yeah, some of the limitations, I guess, I don't know if I would say that they're, I think, um, I feel like though it's really, I feel like sometimes I don't get the opportunity to work with, and maybe this is just like my own, like what I've selected to, or what I've chosen to, who I've chosen to work with. I don't feel like I get a lot of opportunities to work with like really like experienced young dancers.
Mhm.
I think I get a lot of like very beginner, novice, like how do I walk kind of dancers.
Like left foot, right
left,
foot,
left
left
foot,
foot,
right
right
foot. Yeah,
foot.
yes, exactly. Heel toe, heel toe. To the beat.
Right.
Bring it back. um, and I don't know if that has anything to do with just, I don't know if it's my blackness. I don't know if it's because I'm a male. Um, I don't know if that's my doing. I think I can think back to some jobs I applied for at some schools that the programs were pretty established and were like some pretty top-notch dancers that I did not get. But I want to say that the people who got them, and I know have followed up and I've seen the people who've received those positions or got those positions. They were more so experienced than I was, and so I guess if I were to go back and like the same kind of thing happened, what would how would that be different? Um, I will say though, as a sometimes I think about the male dancers that are even ones that I know in secondary education now. Gosh, I feel like I'm probably one of the older ones
Mhm.
that's in it, really. As far as like high school, secondary, public school, male teachers, like I can't think of many, even here in Maryland. And I know a couple that are in Texas, and I know I'm among the, as far as like even like age wise, and have done it the longest. I'm kind of up in like the top 3 to 5 people. So I say that to say that I don't think there's a lot of male dancers that stick around in public education, period.
Mhm.
And even within that, there's not a lot of Black men um, that do it as well too. Um, so even sometimes that's limiting. I think seeing Black male dancers in a secondary public school setting, no matter what you teach, I think is awesome. And I
Mhm.
think a lot of students really need that. Um, and especially just in dance, I think that's really, I think that's important. Um, my school that I was at before, Lamar, like there were, when I started there were just all these little Black boys that just came knocking on our door wanting to be in dance. I think I shared that story before. But they just came in droves and like just wanted to join it. And it's like, yeah, like if this becomes your safe haven, then by
Mhm.
all means, please, like, come on in. We will take you by the masses. Um, but and I think some of that encourages other males to kind of join and to maybe try something that they never thought they would be interested in. Um, yeah, so I don't know if that answers your question. Like, I mean, I think I know I kind of went and then came back in and went and then came back in. Yeah, I it's one of those things that I hope that it doesn't, but I know that it does affect my hireability. I know it affects the types of jobs that I get. But I think, but what I feel fortunate about is that I think even on the opposite side of it, whether you're Latinx, Caucasian, Asian, like I think that we are all, I think we're all going to experience those like expectations and limitations.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I think you answered, at least,
yeah.
answered enough.
Yeah,
I'll
sorry.
allow it.
It was a long-winded response to it, but yeah, I think yeah. It's a good question. It's a good question that I don't think I've ever really thought about. Because I even wonder for female, like female dancers, like what do you like if you feel like you've had the same opportunities as some of the, I mean, because one, there's not many males. Two, there's not many Black males. Two, there's you know what I mean. So it's like it's hard to kind of have that conversation of like knowing what a white male secondary education dance educator goes through and deals with, as opposed to someone who's Black or someone who is Latinx. You know what I mean? But I also wonder if since there's more female, more mixed, like if the experiences are the same or different. I don't know. Do you know? Do you feel like they're leveled?
I personally just always make the assumption that my Blackness plays a part in something. I go in off the jump, just like, this has an impact. And I think that may come in part just from my experience in undergrad, which was not bad. I wouldn't say it was bad, but I became very much aware that I was Black. Like I knew beforehand, obviously, but there was an awareness brought to it then that I was like, oh, but I'm Black though. Like, and y'all actually, that deters some of you from wanting to deal with, oh, wow. I was like, first of all, I didn't know in this new millennium we were still doing that, but okay, good to know. I think for me personally, and this is actually a conversation I've been having a lot lately with different people in different contexts, but like I told some of my friends the other day that I was like, in my mind, I've always been darker than what I am. Like, it just blows my mind. Like, this is why I don't wear makeup, because I don't know how to pick the correct foundation shade. Because I'm like, I legitimately am brown, like brown. And folks be like, nah, sis, you not. And I'm like, okay, that's cool, I guess.
Yeah.
And so there was what really kind of started me making that connection and understanding that was a teaching experience in North Carolina with, I don't know if I've shared this. I feel like I have, but if I haven't, we'll share it again or share it new. I had a student, a fourth grader, who word on the street, his parents were active Klan members. And I vividly remember there's a parent-teacher conference, and all the other teachers are like, pretty much all the teachers were Black at this school, vast majority. So these Black women are talking about, and they're older than I am at that time. I was still in my 20s, one of the new teachers in the building. and everyone's discussing like how this is going to go and like the stuff he does in their class. Like he draws swastikas on all the books in the desks. And I was like, I don't have that problem. That don't be happening.
Right.
For me. Like, what? I was like, y'all for real? Like, this is what's going on. This is why I got to stay after today for this meeting. Cause this is wild. Like, I didn't know. And one of the older women told me, she was like, well, it's because you're light and a northerner. And I was like, I am confused that this is a thing that we are still concerned about. But then after she said that, I really kind of took inventory of everyone in the room. Mm-hmm. And outside of the people who were actual Caucasian, I was the lightest thing in there. And I was the only one that wasn't from the South. And I was like, I don't know how this is benefiting me, but it is benefiting me. And so now, with more knowledge and looking back, I'm like, oh, okay. So the takeaway is the type of privilege that I get by walking into that situation as a lighter Black woman was something that they didn't have access to. Right. And even though I was unaware of it, that didn't change the fact that it was still there. Message for some people. Just because you're unaware doesn't mean that you're not benefiting. And so now I am way more aware of the instances where I'm like, okay, well, if it's between me and someone who is darker skinned and I get chosen, I'm like, okay, well, did that play a part? And it's not that it always does. I'm not saying that, but that is something that still happens. And I feel like I would be remiss to not acknowledge it. But the same for when I'm going for a position where it's like a predominantly white area. I'm the only person of color sitting up in there interviewing. And I'm just like, and then I always get asked, do I do hip hop? And I'm like, y'all really don't know me. I'm not Black enough. Like, let me be clear for you. That part of the gene pool skipped. Like, I don't know what happened. I didn't get it though. It is tragic. So just like if they shouldn't sign up for you teaching anybody's African class, don't sign up for me teaching a hip hop class. Like, don't do that. Don't do if it's street jazz, we can finagle our way through it because I can just be like, we just gonna tweak some jazz movements. But let me be clear, don't sign up for a hip hop class I'm teaching because it's not gonna be hip hop for real. It's just not. It's not. It's gonna be really bad. But it's always that question. I've gotten that question pretty much every position I've applied for. Well, okay, well, do you do hip hop? And I'm like, did you look at my resume? No, I don't. Like, I laid out very clear what I do. Like, I don't do it. I'm not against it, but I've not been trained in it. And I'm like, that's actual training. Like, it's
not just
I'm like, because, and you know what, like, my students used to hate that I would say this, and I'm like, I don't care. I mean it. I said what I said. There's a difference between hip hop dance and club dance.
Correct.
These are different things. If you want me to teach a hip hop class, that means I should be trained to do so. If you want me to just put on music and let you just party it up, that's something else. I was like, that's what we're not doing. So find you someone who legitimately is trained. They have put in the work. Because it ain't me. And I mean, and I'm like, my resume really does say nothing about hip hop on there anywhere because I'm like, I'm not about to lie to you like that. But even this most recent position, I got that question about that and teaching African. So first of all, I shouldn't be teaching nobody's West African class. I should not. I mean, I got me a job, but now I'm in the position where I'm like, hire somebody else to teach that because I had no business. And I literally told my students that I was like, guys, I shouldn't be teaching this. So we're going to learn together. I'm going to show you footage of actual African dance happening. I was like, because let me tell you who is not well versed. This lady. I don't know how I got here, but I'm here now. So let me at least expose you to what it should be, but just know it ain't going to be what I'm giving you because this is not my domain. But thankfully I'm in a position now to be like, yeah, nah, hire somebody else. somebody who knows what they're doing. Let this, because like you said, it's a disservice. It's not fair.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do a disservice to any dance form. I don't want to be that person. But again, since I was like the Black teacher. And so there was the assumption that, oh, well, bet you can do this. And I'm like, that's an actual dance form. There's so much to it. So much.
Right.
I'm like, child, don't be setting me up like this. Got me up in here an entire liar. Like, don't do that. But it's, I think for me, though, the biggest, I guess, barrier, setback, concern, issue, whatever word we're going to use, is similar to the friend that you mentioned, that I'm not small. I got hips for days. And it's just like, I just be out here, all the hips. It's like, let me tell you what I'll never be, a 0 or a 2. Let me tell you that. I'll never be any of those sizes. So let it go. Like, it won't happen. And I feel like that has been more of a thing to overcome because it's like you kind of have to prove that you can dance. And I'm like, but I have the training. Like, I can do these things. And it's one of those things where it's like, okay, but does size matter? Like, is it that important?
Right.
Because I think no.
Yeah, no, it definitely doesn't.
And I've told students that, like, I've had, I remember one baby, I think, did she graduate this year? She might have graduated this year. I think so. I have to ask Sandy, because I think she graduated this year. But I remember her audition for the program, and we're like at the bar partway through, and she is sobbing. Like, we stopped the audition, sent everybody else back to the waiting room, and had to have a heart-to-heart talk with her. And she made it known that, you know, she felt out of place because she was really tall, but she was a heavier girl. And she was like, well, I just feel like I'm not as good as the rest of them because I look different. And I was like, well, sis, let me pause you now. I wish a bitch would tell me I can't date. I wish. I just need someone to say it to my face so I can square up. I can't even fight, but I'll square up off of that. I was like, because what you're not going to do is tell me that I don't have the skill set that I have worked for and I have developed, and I clearly do have, just because I don't fit this visual standard that you're trying to place onto me. Right. And I know it helped her get through the rest of the audition. She got in. I know to my knowledge, she did the program her entire time at Northwestern. But I do know that was something that she kind of battled with a lot. And I'm like, okay, you know, it's bad enough that we beat ourselves up over stuff, but then to hear that from the outside is really distressing. But I 100% am like, if you can do the movement, then you can do the movement. Right. And you just figure out how to get your body to do the movement. Like, yeah. Like, it's mind over matter almost is kind of where I kind of classify it, that I'm like, okay, I know I need my body to do this thing. All right, so let me figure out how to get my body to do that thing. Right. And my size to me should have no bearing on that if I'm able to navigate the space the way I'm supposed to. Right. So I think that has been more of a concern than race, or it has been more of a blatant concern. Let me say that. Right. Because you never know what people be saying behind closed doors. And most people try not to be completely racist to your face, I think.
Right. I agree. Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, and I was gonna say, like, when you were talking about the privilege that you had in that meeting in
Mm-hmm.
North Carolina, like, I do think that there is definitely a lot of privilege in being a male dance teacher. I mean, I think there's definitely like some pros, lots of pros in choosing this profession and going out and doing it, because I mean, I've done it for 12 years, and I think that um, the only times I've ever felt like this might not be the best option for me had nothing to do with what I was doing in the classroom. It had everything to do with, like, someone else's need to have a power, like exert their power. But other than that, like, I think it's definitely has been really successful. And I think because I've worked so hard to try to be very, like, to diversify my background, and I think maybe that also is like, you know male, female, black, and not black, like the need to, like, diversify your portfolio, so that way you were, because I feel like I don't know if Caucasian dancers, artists, like, do they, I wonder, this is a wondering, if if they ever feel a need to um, know multiple things in order to acquire employment, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? Like the assumption that, oh, we know hip hop, jazz, or we know hip hop, we know African. But for our white counterparts, they're never asked those questions. Do you know African? Do you know hip hop? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like,
Yeah.
the fact that they kind of know, it's like one of the things like, well, not only do we need to know the modern, the jazz, the ballet, we need to also know the African, the hip hop, and the everything else too.
Like
You
we
know what
have
I
to
mean?
know
Because
all of the
you,
things.
you have you have to know all of the things in order to, I guess, be validated, and in order to be seen marketable. And I think that very much so as a male dance teacher, I think more so than it's all about having variety. Like, if you
Mm-hmm.
can't do a variety of things, I feel like people won't look twice at you if you
Yeah.
if you can't do those things. Like, if I feel like if I didn't have the background, the fortune to have the background that I have had in teaching, like, yeah, I think I would struggle with finding a job, which sucks. It sucks for people who really want to focus on ballet or on jazz or on modern. It's like, yeah, and I would say that if that's your focus, that needs to almost be your focus, not in a teaching realm as far as like secondary, but maybe in like you want to go and be like get an MFA or go dance on Broadway or
Mm-hmm.
audition for companies, or yeah, I just feel like that is, it's hard. It's just really, really, I don't know, at least it just feels that way. I don't ever want to say that that's like for sure what you have to do, but this has the industry has a feeling that, for me, in my experience, that you need to diversify your portfolio heavily as a male dancer, teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think to your one question you posed, the white counterparts that I am friends with,
Hmm.
um, I know most of them have pretty diverse backgrounds. Like they may have one thing that is like their specialty, but they do see
Hmm.
the value in taking um, other forms and studying those forms.
Hmm.
But then I am also aware that the ones I am friends with may be a different breed. So there is that. So
Hmm. Hmm.
I would be interested in finding out, is that as common across the board as it is within my friend group?
Hmm.
Because part of me feels like it may not be. Like I feel
Yeah.
like my friend group is just that type of diverse, but
Hmm.
I don't know that they are the norm. And so I think that's
Right.
actually a good question to kind of try to bring up and see if we can get some answers to.
Right. And maybe that's a direction that we might need to push other young Black artists future dancers is that like maybe they don't have to diversify. Maybe they can just like, if you want to, like a Misty Copeland, for instance, like, she wanted to study ballet and that's what she did. Like, and I'm sure she did other things too, but like that was like her main focus as far as like her career. If you do want to be a hip hop, artist, like, yes, go out and really find that training. Sadly, I don't know. It still brings up mixed emotions because I'm just like, well, a lot of people wouldn't just hire. I mean, sometimes it's like, why is like hip hop something that's like, well, no, well, you need to do other things too, because like that's not going to really get you a good career. Like when you're asked to teach something, well, maybe someone is asked to teach something. I know we're going on. This is like a whole nother.
It is. It's fine. I am here with you.
This is like a whole nother topic or a whole nother episode, right? Of like, when you think about how we diversify our training, why are we not focusing on some cultural dances? Like, why is that not the center of a program's training? Is that like, if I want to study cultural art forms, that's where I'm at, and I don't want to do Graham, I don't want to do Horton, I don't want to do Hawkins. Like, I want to focus on studying West African dancing.
And I think for me, listening to you, it brought to mind that saying, like a lot of Black people I know have heard this in their life, that you have to work twice as hard to get half as much. And that comes to mind because first, the idea of we are expected to be well-versed in everything. Like we have to go above and beyond to get the same position. That it's just like, does anyone else have to do this? I'm like, because this is tomfoolery. Why are you expecting me to be? It's almost like they want us to be like a jack of all trades. And I'm like, well, first of all, I want to be a master of something. I don't want to just dabble in all of it. But also that idea, I think, also bleeds over into the forms of dance, that there is a cheapening of them. That, oh, well, since this is a cultural dance form, it's not as legitimate. And I don't understand why that's a thing, because the same folks who be talking about it's not as legitimate as the concert dance forms will be the first ones going to take a class and then calling themselves teaching it. Try not to be here with it because I feel a type of way.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Because oh my God. But then, okay, what blows me is that there will be same folks will get that freaking job teaching it. And I'm just like, but did you have to jump through the hoops that I would have had to have jumped through? Because I know the answers now. I already know the answer to that. Because I'm watching the class that you're teaching and I'm like, ma'am, I'm not well versed in it, but I know what I'm looking at is not the thing. Like, are you serious? Like, why is this allowed? Why is that okay? And for it to be perpetuated, not only like at studios and like private institutions, but like even like collegiate level, like that is an issue. And I do not appreciate that idea that everything that is not Eurocentric is of lesser value. And that seems to, even though there have been some shifts, I'm not saying things are still like the way that they've always been, there have been shifts, but that is still the dominant thought. And it's like, okay, well, what exactly do you do to really overhaul the system? Because what's been happening has made change, but I'm like, this whole thing needs to just be flipped. But how do you do so?
Yeah. Mm,
Man, I'm telling you, just start going up in random places and flip tables. Like, I don't know. Maybe
right.
don't do that. Maybe don't encourage that. Do not go out just flipping tables. It's frowned
Yeah, no.
upon. Even though I think it could work.
It could work. It could work. Yeah, I think it will take some, to get to those collegiate levels. I mean, I wonder, where does it take place in the professional world, and the professional world starts to see it differently, and then it will trickle down to collegiate. I don't know if maybe in secondary, you know what I mean? Like, I think, just knowing the demographics of my school, like, I know I have some really great dancers who love, like, dances that come from, their countries, and come
Mhm.
from, what they do at parties. And it's funny because, like, they always ask, can we do this dance, can we do this dance? And I'm like, well, one, I don't want to teach you how to do something you already know how to do, because
True.
that's not me teaching you anything. But what I do like is when I see that, when I give them the opportunity to choreograph something after having a year of, like, getting uh, chunks of, like, other things, they're able to incorporate some of that
Mhm.
into their movement, however they see it. And I think that is always a breath of fresh air to see
Mhm.
that. And I think that those are, sadly, they may not, some of that training is not going to get them into a a program, sadly, you know what I mean? But yeah, I think maybe that's where it is. I think the professional world really has to value the spread and the teaching of these art forms, um, because, I mean, just especially with, like, I mean, think about this, how we're doing the social distancing now, and, like, just the era that we are in, or that we're going to be in. Your traditional classroom dance class may not look like it looked before.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And it might be some of those cultural dances might be is what saves dancing. Might be what continues to give dance value in the eyes of just the public, because not many people are studying ballet, jazz, but people are still seeing dance through TikToks, or seeing dance through commercials, or seeing dance through movies, and I think those are more of the things that I think will should have a little bit more weight in our studies, I think.
I agree.
Yeah.
And to add to that, I would say from the higher ed perspective, there needs to be new management. There needs to be a changing of the guard, as they
Hmm.
say.
Yeah.
Because until you have people in these positions that are open to that,
Hmm.
to these changes, and who are open to actually genuinely valuing the dance forms of various cultures, and not just continue to perpetuate the Eurocentric ideals that have been in place thus far, we're just going to
Hmm.
keep spinning our wheels. Um,
Right.
because those are the people who make the decisions, and
Hmm.
they just keep making the same decisions over and over. And even um, I'm being careful with my words here because I still need a job. Even when you have, look, I be trying.
Yeah.
I be trying. In particular, when you have a position that is in a department that is not a true dance department,
Hmm.
that openness still needs to be there.
Hmm.
Um, Even if all you offer is a minor in dance, even if all you offer is dance electives, that
Hmm.
doesn't change the fact that you still need to approach dance with a certain openness.
Hmm.
And also either a certain knowledge base in it or a willingness to really look for those people who do have that information.
Right.
The easy way out is to just throw someone in there and hope for the best,
Mm-hmm.
because it's
Right.
just a dance class. And I'm like, okay, but for a lot of us, this is our entire career.
Right.
Like, if I know I don't specialize in it, but I'm like, oh, but I know someone who does.
Mm-hmm.
This person, this is their thing. And then I know people who would do the same for me. Like, we need more opportunities where the value is actually being seen in what we do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I think in some of those cultural art forms, taking it back to our first episode today.
Run it back.
Run it back.
Because clearly. Yes, quarantine episodes.
Yes. I think that you could, just talking about male and dance, I think some of those cultural art forms are heavily male driven. Mm-hmm. They are male danced. And I think that when you limit it to those European dancing, like, I think that's when you cut men out of it.
Yeah.
And I think for whatever reason, you know, I don't want to speculate why it does that. Because I don't have any data or research on why that is, but I think the cultural, yeah, for sure. I feel like I've been taught by more men doing cultural dances than I've been taught by men doing, you know, your traditional ballet modern jazz, for sure.
Yes,
that I have data on.
And I tell you, when I tell you, I love to see it. You be like, yes, sir, yes.
Yeah.
I'll be here for those classes, because I'm like, yes. Right. Yeah. And they, you know what? Legit, that is part of why it boggles my mind that anybody would be like, nah, I don't want men dancing. Like the dancing body is beautiful to me in general, just across the board. But the dancing male body, I'd be like, oh, all right, y'all out here or whatever. Like there's just something about that balance that is struck that to me is amazing, and I love to see it. And there is something about seeing it in those cultural dance forms that I'm just like, y'all really be out here, and I am in full support of this. Folks be missing out. Not to say you can't see it in like ballet, modern jazz, not to say that, but it's a different vibe.
Right. Oh yeah. There's just there's passion. Passion in it. Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed wholeheartedly.
Sure. Yes.
Good child.
Yes.
Love to see it. Right, so on that note, we now come to our ultimate dance trio. Yeah. I know. Child, I'm about to start running out of questions. It's about to start getting real ignorant up in here. You might be one of the last few people to get a normal one. I'm like, man, I'm in school. I don't be really thinking about this. For real, stop playing. These questions are hard to come up with, let alone answer. Right. So, if you could choreograph to any 3 songs, what would they be and why?
Oh my God.
And it can't be something that you've choreographed to already. So you can't say, oh, well, I started this, but I would love to finish it. Something completely from scratch, brand new.
Completely from scratch. Well, it's funny that you asked, because I am the choreographer for the honors ensemble for PGC next year.
Hey. Excitement.
So I'm excited yes. And so because I'm like such a choreographer that, like, if the song doesn't bring me joy, So then
Mm.
I can't use it anymore.
Yes.
I just, if I'm bored with it, then this choreography just about to be like, I don't know how to finish
Mm.
this. Just, you know, so I try to be very selective with like the things that I choose. I okay, so I've not choreographed to it, but I would love to. So there's a song called Stars by Nina Simone. It's a live
Mm.
version that she does. It's beautiful. It was actually on a episode of BoJack Horseman.
Yeah, I love that show. We're gonna talk about it later. All
Yes, yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah. I've
Yes.
never seen it, but like when I looked for the song, it was like from the BoJack Horseman
That is
soundtrack,
hilarious.
and I was like, "That's so crazy." But then I also watched that documentary about Nina Simone, and like they
Mhm.
played that whole like this was like her coming out of her retirement towards the end of her life, and like she plays this somewhere in France, and it's beautiful. So I would love to choreograph to that song. Um, oh my gosh. There's something really jazzy, and I've never done a choreography to "Keep It in the Closet" by Michael Jackson. Have you heard? It's on his
Uh-huh.
Dangerous album. It's
Yes.
really good, and I love that song. um, so yeah, maybe if I do another, actually, okay. So my idea, we're probably not going to have MDEA like when we're going to have like you usually have it
Yeah.
in October. We probably won't have it then. But the minute I'm able to teach another class, I'm going to teach a Hills class, and
Yes.
it might be to that song.
I'll be there.
Okay. Okay.
I'll be
That
there.
just like I need to like write that down
Yeah.
somewhere where I'm not gonna lose it, so that way I can remember that's the song. "Keep It in the Closet" by Michael Jackson. Heels. Yeah,
Yes.
I'll
I'm here
play.
for it.
I can play it for you. If you have you heard it before?
I have.
Okay.
I
Okay.
have.
Okay. I was like, it's. I mean, I know MJ might be a little canceled, but it's
It,
still
just a little bit. A
a little bit.
smidge.
A
A
smidge. You might
smidge.
be like a smidge canceled, but and then the last one um would be mm, I really want to do some hip hop to Savage remix by
Mm,
Megan Thee Stallion and Beyonce.
I'm not mad at that.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm here
Especially
for it.
with my Texas roots.
Yes.
By the way, none of those will be used for the PGCPS
Just to
ensemble.
be clear. Just to be clear.
Just to be clear, none of those. But
Like,
yeah,
I'm excited for you. I
yeah,
enjoyed doing the honors ensemble when I did it.
yeah, yeah.
It was a fun experience.
Good.
I hope to be able to come in as a guest maybe one day and do it again. I don't know. We'll see. I'll talk to
Yeah, that would
Talisha.
be fun. Yeah,
I ain't got
yeah.
nothing
Call it
else
up.
better to do. Like, my whole life now is trying to find different places to set work. So
Yeah,
right up my alley.
right.
All right. Thanks again for joining me,
Yeah,
sir. And I just keep
so
kidnapping you.
fun. Yeah, keep going. I mean, I'm just
Look, I'm
this
telling
is
you, at this point, I'm just going to stop saying you're a special guest. I'm like, okay, and my co-host, because clearly, I'm just going to keep having you on here. Like that's just
right.
what we're going to do. So
And
there's that.
yeah.
So I might,
So
I'm going to talk to you about next week. Just
okay.
full transparency. Going to talk to you
Yeah,
about it
no,
when
that's
we
fine.
get off of here. All
Okay.
right. And thanks again, everybody, for joining us here at Dance Talk Realness. Please be sure to comment, like, subscribe, follow us on all the places where I exist, which is only going to be YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Dance Talk Realness across the board at all of those. If you have any suggestions or any questions, please be sure to drop them. I do my best to respond to everything. And if you have questions, I'll be sure to pose them to my guests. Or if they are for me, I'll make sure that I answer them. So I look forward to talking to you guys next week and bringing some fresh new content. See you then. Bye.